Welcome to the Dental Breakdown Show. This show is where we break down issues in the dental marketplace. My name is Christian White, CEO of White & Associates Practice Consulting, Better Business, Better Dentistry. Let's introduce our guest to the podcast today, Zach Lee. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, thanks, Christian. Thanks so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Zach.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's start things off this morning by having you talk a little bit about yourself.
Sure, sounds good. I would say from a business standpoint, I'm an entrepreneurial self-starter that loves helping people. I really love service and being able to be an advocate for my clients, and so that's one of the reasons why I think CARR is such a good fit for me. From a personal standpoint, I'm a family guy. I got 3 kids and a beautiful wife. And we love hanging out together with other family and friends, especially within our neighborhood. And one of the cool things that we've actually gotten to do a lot of over the last couple of months due to COVID is we now like to work out together. So we have Saturday morning workouts with our kiddos, and our 2 youngest are 5 and 8, and they are more athletic and in better shape than we are. So it's great.
That's something new. I haven't heard that yet. The family that works out together. That is awesome.
Yeah. The family that works out together stays together, I guess.
I like that. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind, man. So let me ask you this question. How did you get involved with the real estate piece? You know, CARR comes in. I know you kind of had some entrepreneurial businesses already on the side, but you kind of jumped into the whole real estate piece. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I owned a business with my dad for a little over 10 years, and we got it to a place where we could leverage it. And I wanted to start a new career. And so I had always been very interested in real estate and in healthcare, and thought that they were both very dynamic markets. And the combination of the two sounded like a really cool way to kind of get into it. And then CARR came along. And it's been a great fit. And this fall, it'll be 2 years. So it's been awesome.
Wow. Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about CARR. I don't know that a lot of people may have not have heard of you guys. Tell us just a little bit about who you are and kind of a little bit about what you guys do, just so our listeners have a better idea of kind of like how you guys work.
Sure. So CARR is the nation's leading provider of commercial real estate service for healthcare tenants and buyers. So every year across the country, coast to coast, and in literally every state, healthcare practices trust CARR to achieve the most favorable terms, whether it's on a lease transaction or a purchase for a building. And so CARR's team of experts, meaning brokers and agents, we really assist on a daily basis with startups, lease renewals, relocations, additional offices, and purchases for practices. So we spend all of our time really focusing on the healthcare industry, which is really what makes us experts in it. So we're the nation's leading provider, and it's been a great company because of the priority that we put on healthcare.
All right. So in the marketplace, Zach, what makes you guys so unique? I hear different things about CARR and how great you guys are. I know a lot of the people that you work with. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I would say the way that we bring value to our clients is, number one, the focus that we have in healthcare. So on a daily basis, I am working with healthcare providers all over Minnesota, but specifically in the Twin Cities metro. And so whether that's a peds group, dermatology, OBGYN, behavioral health, we are in the mix on a daily basis negotiating with landlords specifically for healthcare providers. And so I think that focus brings a different level of expertise, number one, because we understand the way that business works for providers, which is an extremely important thing to be able to understand when it comes to working with a provider and what their needs are. And then number two, it's really helping educate them along the process to be able to help get them the most favorable terms. So every client, what I have learned is every client has a different level of comfort and experience when it comes to dealing with real estate. And so what we like to do is make sure that with each one, we're tailoring our message and the way that we are kind of working with them to meet their needs specifically.
Okay. I know that I get asked this a lot by a lot of the dental clients and other healthcare clients that we work with. What is the state of the union in terms of real estate? We have COVID going on. We have a number of other, different things that have kind of, changed everybody's idea of, kind of what's going on in the world. How does all this kind of coming down to affect the real estate piece?
Sure. So what we are seeing kind of across the board is you have large office users that are starting to rethink the way that they kind of conduct business. And I think due to COVID, they have been forced to kind of rethink and remodel the way that they interact with their employees. And I think what we're seeing is not what I'm thinking. What we are seeing is a softening of the office sector, where I think you see large corporations who might have 3 to 4 floors, let's say in a downtown Minneapolis skyscraper, that no longer need that because they're going to change their model. And so from an office standpoint, we're seeing that market soften. We're also seeing a lot of retailers, large national retailers, either need to rethink the way that they're conducting business, or they're going out of business. I just saw that GNC, for example, filed for bankruptcy.
Saw that too.
And yeah, and that's something that we're going to continue to see throughout the months. And so, from a retail standpoint and office standpoint, we're definitely seeing a softening. But for healthcare, we are one of those things that I don't want to say it's recession proof, because you are going to see some individual provider groups that don't make it. But by and large, you are seeing healthcare providers not only come out of COVID or go through COVID strong, but even, I have multiple providers that I work with right now that actually they've told me business has never been better. And, I think what that kind of speaks to is the need for healthcare, because it's a part of our fabric in our community, across the country, and across the world. And so this is really an opportune time, I believe, for healthcare providers to really understand that they're blue chip tenants, and that landlords really recognize that over the coming months, they are going to be having an exodus of some of their tenants within their buildings or retail locations, and because due to COVID, and that being able to bring in a healthcare tenant who is going to be able to stay for the long haul is a great addition to their space. And so being able to get more concessions, or whether that's free rent, tenant improvement allowance, a lower net rate for their base rate, those types of things are really, I think, all out there for healthcare providers because of the value add that they bring to a location.
So Zach, here's something that I have noticed, just that's kind of going on just, in the dental marketplace. We have a lot of younger dentists who maybe would have otherwise opted for a job in a DSO or a corporate type of an office. And a
Yep.
lot of those younger dentists have decided to kind of go out and venture in and buy their own practices. And they're kind of going out there in the world. And just because of, the interest rates right now are, so favorable, are you seeing that in other areas of healthcare as well? Because I'm hearing that, and I think that would have a direct effect on you guys.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is for established practitioners or providers, that if they have a kind of a track record and they, business experience, they've been in practice for a while, they are more or less moving forward with their strategic goals. From a startup standpoint, I am seeing a few doctors move forward but I'm also seeing a few doctors kind of press pause to wait and see what happens with COVID through the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, again, what I'm seeing is if you're established, I'm seeing people push forward. And if for a startup, I'm seeing both sides of the coin.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. That's just kind of a new nuance in the marketplace that, I don't think anybody was expecting that. Of course, nobody was
No.
expecting COVID either. So it's kind of like, this is like a brand new thing for everybody.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I'm working with a plastic surgeon right now, and we pressed pause at the beginning of COVID due to shelter in place. And what's interesting is we connected about 2 months into COVID at the end, and right after the non-essential healthcare providers could start doing surgeries and things like that again. And he said, I can't really, I don't quite understand it, but business is never better, and we need more square footage than originally we thought.
Wow.
And so his business is continuing to expand, and I have other providers who are having the same thing where they're being forced to be thinking, I think, in a different at a different strategic level, but they're also seeing that in the marketplace, healthcare is here to stay, and there's a need for it. We need it.
Nice. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just one of those things where, if you break your arm, you need to have somebody take a look at it and do something with it. You can't just leave it because it will not grow.
You don't want me doing it.
You don't. No, I don't. I do not want Zachary doing surgery on my arm, nor do I want him trying to fix my broken arm.
Yeah. Well, and Christian, I think kind of piggybacking off of that that idea of, you don't want somebody with little to no experience setting your arm and putting a cast on you. That's the same thing when it comes to a real estate transaction.
True.
That one of the biggest mistakes that I see providers making is the idea that they should DIY it and they should do it themselves. And the challenge with that is even though they've been successful in every other facet of their professional lives, when it comes to real estate, a lot of times they simply just don't have the time, whether it's, an average real estate transaction will take between 30 to 40 hours. And instead of investing that time into real estate, it would be far better off spending that time with patients and, doing those receivables and billable hours versus putting that into real estate where they're not the expert, and they're also not going to be taken as seriously in a real estate transaction by representing themselves versus hiring representation so that they're leveling the playing field with the landlord. Landlords, when they see somebody DIYing it, they're like, okay, we're probably going to be able to get away with some concessions or less concessions than we typically would, because this person either doesn't A, have the time, or B, doesn't have the expertise. And that's not the provider's fault. It's just kind of the way it is. It's the same reason why you don't want me fixing your arm when I have no experience.
How true. The Dental Breakdown Show, sponsored by White & Associates Practice Consulting. Better business, better dentistry. They are a practice management and consulting firm for dentists and other healthcare-related businesses. Their sole purpose is to implement proven strategies through online and in-practice visits that result in the personal and professional success of the dentist and his or her team.
This is Zachary Lee, healthcare real estate agent with CARR Inc. CARR is the nation's leading provider of commercial real estate services for healthcare tenants and buyers. We help providers save time, money, and avoid costly pitfalls. We do this through education, representation, and developing expert teams of resources for our clients to receive the most favorable terms for their next real estate lease or purchase. Contact us at carr.us for help with your next real estate transaction.
Let's talk about the value that you bring to your clients, because I know people who've worked with you. Everyone has raving reviews about the work you do, and let's chat a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, what I like to tell my clients and centers of influence that I work with in healthcare is that my job really is to be kind of like a concierge. So I'm going to handle the real estate negotiation, and I'm going to handle that, and that's my focus. But I think another really cool advantage of working with CARR and working with me is that the centers of influence that I work with in healthcare are top-notch experts, and so the team that I'm able to help build for my clients and help that specialized focus for them when they're doing a relocation, a new build out, looking at tenant improvement allowance and what that could be, looking at financing and all those things that go into it. I help our clients build that team and make those introductions so that it's really a seamless project and a seamless transaction. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen in my time at CARR is when you have a generalist approach and a generalist team trying to take care of a specialized need. And when that happens, you typically don't save as much money as you could, you don't save as much time as you could, and you typically don't avoid those costly pitfalls that can extend those projects or cost you money. And by having a specialized team, really what you're getting is a very white glove experience. And that's what we're able to bring for our clients on a daily basis.
Mhm. So, all right. So here's Zachary, and all of a sudden COVID-19 hits, and here you are providing 5-star service to your clients. How has COVID impacted that? What have you had to maybe tweak to be able to really go above and beyond what other people do in terms of meeting the needs of their clients?
You know, one of the things has been due to shelter in place and needing to take extra precautions, especially for providers, needing to mitigate as much risk and exposure as possible with the general public so that they're not potentially infecting their patients is virtual tours. So Zoom, just like we're using, has been kind of a staple for me over the past 6 weeks in helping provide my clients as much of the same experience as possible for being able to tour locations. And so we're still able to press forward to make informed and educated strategic decisions, but it just looks a little bit different. And I truly think that, you know, over the next, through the fall and into the winter, that will probably potentially be something that I continue to do depending on the level of comfort for each individual client, is doing virtual tours.
So the whole virtual tour piece, that's kind of like it's kind of like something new that's here to stay for you.
I would think so. You know, every provider that I work with has a little bit different level of comfort for mitigating risk and exposure.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, what I see time and time again is that, you know, they are patient focused first, and their priority is making sure that they are, you know, taking care of them in the best possible way, and also reducing the amount of exposure the most that they can. And so virtual tours is something that I've seen, you know, consistently across the board be something that's important to them.
So if a client comes to you and says, "Well, I don't want to do a virtual tour. I still want you to walk me through the space or the property," will you still do that, or how do you
Absolutely.
handle that?
Yep, absolutely. Really what we do is we just try to take as much, like for example, before COVID hit, when I would go on a tour with a client, we would ride together in my car to each location. When a provider wants to be in person and see the space for themselves, uh, in reality versus virtually, I guess, what they'll do is they'll drive separate, and then we take precautions like using hand sanitizer, not shaking hands, wearing a mask, all those different types of things. And you know, the listing brokers too are doing a tremendous job of really, you know, making tours as safe as possible. And you know, everyone that I've come across has done just a really fantastic job.
Hmm. Okay, wonderful. So Zach Lee's value add that he brings to the marketplace. Tell me about that.
Sure. I would say the two things that I think about are probably specialization and focus. Like I said earlier, CARR is the only national real estate firm in the country that focuses primarily on healthcare and only does tenant and buyer representation. And what you get with that, again, is really a focused niche approach to a specialization in making sure that we really understand providers and getting them uh, the best concessions possible for their real estate needs. And to give you kind of an example of a properly or poorly negotiated lease, just as an example, is let's say the average provider footprint across the country for healthcare is, let's say, 3,000 square feet. A poorly negotiated lease renewal or lease could end up costing you, let's say, $2 to $3 more than you may have paid if you would have had the proper representation. Well, every month, that 3,000 square feet with $2 to $3 extra can be anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 extra. And over the course of 10 years, you're looking at, around $100,000 total for a mistake. And when I look at that, that's also not just, let's say, $100,000 extra, but that's probably about $300,000 to $400,000 in production to be able to cover that mistake. Because for every dollar that a provider charges, it's not a dollar that they necessarily get back. Correct. Due to different reimbursements. And I mean, you know that. And so it's really important to take real estate and understand that, most providers don't know this, Christian, that real estate is typically the second or third highest expense for a practice. So typically you're going to have payroll, and then typically it's real estate, or then it's merchandise. So, medical supplies, those types of things. And most of the time, clinic administrators, CFOs, CEOs, they're focused on overhead, and they kind of look at real estate like this thing. It's just a necessary evil that they have to pay. So as long as they're managing overhead properly, it's kind of like, well, we're just going to pay the real estate. We're happy with where we're at. We've been here for 20 years, so we're just going to sign that lease renewal, and business will be good. The board of directors will be happy because we're profitable. We increased our profitability by 8% last year. We're doing great. Whereas what they're missing is if they took advantage of doing taking a strategic goal, focusing on their next real estate transaction, which happens probably every 5 to 10 years, depending on the practice, they could save tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over the lifespan of that next lease. And that is huge.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's that's some serious cash, Zach.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I have been working with a larger group here in the Twin Cities. They have over 5 locations here in the metro, and I've been handling their lease renewals, relocations, etc. And when in the last real estate transaction that I represented them in, they had been in a space for, I want to say 15 years approximately, and lease renewal was coming up, and nobody wanted to move. Doctors, they just wanted to stay. They wanted basically to sign the renewal and have it be over. But I talked to the clinic administrator and talked her through the process of, this is the way that we're going to negotiate on this lease renewal. And we're also going to look at some other locations to be able to see if we can get you more concessions from another landlord who would really like to have you, because you're a blue chip tenant. Mm-hmm. You are someone who's going to bring some of the most value to this property. And they know that you're going to be able to be here for the long term if they treat you well. And so the clinic admin was, like not wanting to go and look at other locations, but she said, okay, absolutely. So we went, we toured, and we ended up helping them with a relocation. And over next 10 years, it's going to save the practice over $400,000.
Oof.
Now,
Wow.
so that's my, I guess, hero story from the standpoint of this doesn't happen every day, but it shows you the value of hiring representation.
Yes, it does.
If this practice wouldn't have hired representation, they would have never known the opportunities that were out there in the marketplace. And landlords, especially now, are hungry for blue chip tenants due to having, again, this exodus of tenants who simply haven't been able to make it due to the unfortunate circumstances of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a healthcare tenant in your location now is, I would say, even more sought out after than before. And so, for my clients, that extra $400,000 in savings plus over the next 10 years allows them to buy new equipment, to add more providers, to do just a variety of other things in their practice that they had maybe hoped for, but they couldn't financially do it. And now they can, because they have more margin in their bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really, really important thing to be thinking about, especially during these times.
That is I think most business owners just in general don't think about that. And most of the doctors, and you and I both know this in the healthcare field, don't always think of it like that. To them, it's just like, well, I'm fixing a tooth, or I'm doing something with someone's, skin, or I'm doing whatever it is that they do. So that's how I can approach that. And that's normally when things go downhill real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and I have seen that.
Yes, we have.
So that group practice is indebted to you. Congratulations. Great job, man.
Thank you. Well, it was a team effort.
I know. Oh, Zach, thanks a lot for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Christian. It was a pleasure to be with you, and thanks again for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And Zach, our listeners who, listen to our podcast, if they have questions or if they want to get a hold of you and talk to you a little bit more about what you do, where can they go to do that?
Yep. So they can go to CARR.us to go to CARR's national website for healthcare providers. And then if you want to contact me directly, you can call me at 612-916-4336.
Thank you for listening today. I'm Christian White, the CEO of White & Associates Practice Consulting, Better Business, Better Dentistry. If you would like more information on today's topic, you can contact us at whitedentalconsulting.com/breakdown. Keep those teeth white, and see you next time on the Dental Breakdown Show.